In this video, we're doing a battery drain test comparing the latest iOS 26.1 to the previous 26.0.1 on every supported iPhone generation. Battery performance is always, arguably, the #1 point of concern people have with software updates, and with 26.1 being the first major iOS 26 update so far, we're going to put it to the test to see if anything major has changed in terms of battery performance in comparison to 26.0.1. So I conducted this test over the course of 2 days. I performed this test first on 26.0.1 on all these iPhones, then I updated all these iPhones to 26.1 and conducted the exact same test again. And I'm now showing both of these tests to you side by side. So we're using the very same iPhones for both the 26.0.1 test and the 26.1 test. This way, it's the most accurate, as we're using the very same iPhones with the very same batteries for both iOS version tests. Which is very important for a video like this, as unless you're literally opening up brand new iPhones, every individual iPhone will have some varying level of battery degradation. In addition to this, I've done my best to ensure everything is predictable and repeatable for both the 26.0.1 test and the 26.1 test. The brightness levels are evenly matched for all devices for both tests to the best of my abilities, and each iPhone is connected to the very same cellular and Wi-Fi networks for both tests. And so far, performance looks to be more or less the same between 26.1 in comparison to 26.0.1, with each iPhone model losing more or less the same amount of battery after each check-in. As always, when watching these test videos, you should not only keep an eye on the total amount of battery percentage remaining, but also the amount of battery percentage lost after each check-in, as observing that, in addition to the total battery percentage remaining, gives you the most accurate idea of the battery performance. As if you only look at the total battery percentage remaining, you're not accounting for the different effects that specific tasks could have on battery consumption. In these tests, there's always some level of random variation that throws each test off a bit. So, by observing the battery percentage lost after each check-in, you get a pretty clear idea of what is a consistent difference in performance throughout the whole test, versus something that's just in the margin of error, throwing things a percent or two off, or maybe uncharacteristically a lot off, but it's only during one specific task. And guys, with the iPhone 17 having just come out, it's an exciting time of year as always. However, the often tedious data transfer process from your previous phone to a new phone can make what should be an awesome experience of upgrading your phone pretty frustrating and time-consuming. However, with Wondershare's Mobile Trans, the process of transferring data from your old iPhone or Android phone to your new iPhone 17 or any other phone is as easy as can be. After downloading the Mobile Trans app on both your old and new phones, you just scan the QR code, and you're able to choose what data you'd like to transfer. This can include all your photos, contacts, messages from WhatsApp and similar applications, and all your other important information. Typically, transferring WhatsApp data from an Android phone to an iPhone or vice versa is not an easy task, as WhatsApp's built-in method for transferring data to a different OS requires this time-consuming process of formatting for your new device. But with Mobile Trans, it's done with the tap of a single button, and all your photos, files, and conversations are quickly transferred to your new device. And one of the best things about Mobile Trans is that it transfers the data directly from phone to phone wirelessly without using any cellular or Wi-Fi data, meaning you can transfer your information without an internet connection. This makes the transfer process much faster than any other method and allows you to transfer over your important information on the go instantly. Mobile Trans data transfer is fast, safe, and easy. You can say goodbye to data loss by using it. So if you're planning to upgrade your phone, or if you just want the easiest way to transfer information from phone to phone, click on the link in the video description and down below to check out Wondershare's Mobile Trans, and big thanks to Wondershare for sponsoring this video and for making getting a new phone so much easier. So as we continue with the test here, so far things are continuing to remain very even between these two iOS versions. Now, something worth noting that could possibly relate to battery performance that was added in the latest 26.1 update is a new option that allows you to tone back the look of the new liquid glass design language with a new tinted option as opposed to the default clear option. But since this new option isn't enabled by default, we're not using the new tinted version of liquid glass that was added in 26.1 in this video. We're just using the default clear option on all devices. It's definitely possible that the new tinted option might consume less battery as it is a little bit less graphically intense, But again, since it's not enabled by default, we're not using it in this test. And guys, it's worth noting that the way you should interpret the results of this battery test is quite different than a lot of the other battery tests on the channel. As with this style of test, when we're comparing two iOS versions to one another, you shouldn't be comparing how each iPhone compares to one another. The whole purpose of this video is to compare these iPhones on 26.0.1 compared to the very same iPhones after being updated to 26.1. Now, the reason that I say you shouldn't be comparing the performance of each iPhone to the other iPhones is because the iPhones we're using in this video are not new. The iPhones we're using in this video are iPhones that I've had for years that I use in the studio for my typical reviews throughout the year. So each of these iPhones have varying levels of battery degradation, which wouldn't make for a fair battery test comparing phones to one another. When I do a battery test, when I am comparing multiple phones to one another, if you're a regular viewer of the channel, you know I always get new iPhones specifically for those videos. However, for a video like this where we're just comparing two iOS versions to one another, the iPhones don't need to be brand new. But yeah, it's just important that I let you guys know of this so you don't falsely interpret the results of this test and start comparing the iPhones to each other, as again, all these iPhones aren't new, they all have varying levels of battery degradation in each of them. And something else that's kind of in the similar vein if you're a regular viewer of the channel is you might notice this type of battery test, the things that we're doing, are different than the battery tests when I'm comparing phones to each other. As for a test like this, where we're conducting it over 2 days, it's important that the test protocol is very repeatable and predictable, so I had to cut some of the things that I include in those videos where I'm comparing phones to each other. For example, if we're loading social media apps that load different content from day to day, videos, pictures that, the amount of each can fluctuate, something like that for a test like this could throw things considerably off. So again, I made sure that this was as predictable and repeatable as possible to get the most accurate data. And guys, it's important to remember what I said earlier, that there's always going to be some random variations in tests like this. And as you've seen throughout this video, with the amount of percentage lost after each check-in, any differences between these two iOS versions on all these iPhones are very likely just in the margin of error. Nothing I've observed throughout this video indicates that there's any substantial difference between 26.1 and 26.0.1 in terms of battery performance. So if you're running 26.0.1 or 26.0, you have nothing to worry about in terms of updating to 26.1 in terms of battery performance. I'd say it's either going to be the same or better, as it is the first major 0.1 update to iOS 26. So I highly recommend updating to 26.1. Let me know down below in the comments how your guys' battery has been on iOS 26 so far, now that we're a few months in and a few point updates into iOS 26. Thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful, and as always, I'll catch you in the next one.